Good evening, friends. You are most welcome to Think IS channel. Today we are discussing the second EIC report and ethics in governance. Our topic is ethical framework for ministers. Government of India has prescribed a code of conduct which is applicable to ministers of both the union and the state governments. The code of conduct merits reproduction here. In addition to the observance of the provisions of the Constitution, the Representations of the People's Act 1951, and any other law for the time being in force, a person before taking office of the minister shall first is disclose to the Prime Minister or the Chief Minister, as the case may be, details of the assets and the liabilities and of business interest of himself and of members of his family. The details to be disclosed shall consist of particulars of the all immovable property and the total approximate value of first is shares and debentures, cash holdings and jewelries. B part is sever all connections short of divesting himself of the ownership with the conduct and management of any business in which he was interested before his appointment as minister. And third is with regard to business concern which supplies goods or services to the government concerned or to undertakings of the government accepting in the usual course of trade or business and at standard or market rates, or whose business primarily depends on license, permits, quotas, leases, etc., received or to be received from government concerned, divest himself of all his interest in the said business and also of the management thereof. Provided, however, that he may transfer in the case of his interest in the management and in the case of both ownership and management. Provided, however, that he may transfer in the case of B, point B, which we discussed before, his interest in the management, and in case of point C, which we discussed before, both ownership and management, to any adult member of his family or adult relative other than his wife or husband, as the case may be, who was prior to his appointment or her appointment as minister associated with the conduct of management or ownership of the said business. The question of divesting himself of his interest would not arise in case of holding of share in public limited companies except where the prime minister of the chief ministers, as the case may be, considers that the nature or extent of his holding is such that it is likely to embarrass him in the discharge of his official duties. After taking office, and so long as he remains in office, the minister shall first is furnish annually by the 31st March to the Prime Minister or the Chief Minister, as the case may be, a declaration regarding his assets and liabilities. B part is refrain from buying from or selling to the government any immovable property except where such property is compulsorily acquired by the government in usual course. C part refrain from starting or joining any business. D part ensure that the members of his family do not start or participate in business concerns engaged in supplying goods or services to the government, accepting in the usual course of trade or business and at standard or market rates, or dependent primarily on grant of license, permits, quotas, lease, etc. from the government, etc. E part report the matter to the Prime Minister or the Chief Minister, as the case may be, if any member of his family setups or joins in the conduct and management of any other business. No minister should there is a point. No minister should: first is personally or through a member of his family accept contribution for any purpose, whether political, charitable, or otherwise, if any purse or check intended for a registered society or a charitable body or an institution recognized by a public authority or a political party is presented to him, he should pass it on, on as soon as possible to the organization for which it is intended, and B part is associate himself with the rising of associate himself with the raising of funds except for the benefit of: first is a registered society or a charitable body or an institution recognized by the public authority, and second, a political party. He should, however, ensure that such contributions are sent to a specified office barrier, etc., of the society or body or institutions of party concerned and not to him. Nothing herein before shall prevent a minister from being associated with the operation for disbursement of funds raised as above. A minister, including the union minister, the chief ministers, and the other ministers of the state government and union territories, should not permit their spouse and dependents to accept employment under a foreign government in India or abroad, or in a foreign organization, including commercial concerns, without prior approval of the Prime Minister, where the wife or a dependent of a minister is already in such employment. The matter should be reported to the Prime Minister for decision whether the employment should or should not continue. As a general rule, there should be total prohibition on employment with a foreign mission. A minister should: A part, not accept valuable gifts except from close relatives, and he or members of his family should not accept any gifts at all from any person with whom he may have official dealings, and B part is, not permit a member of his family contract debts of a nature likely to embarrass or influence him the discharge of his official duties. A minister may receive gifts when he goes abroad or from foreign dignitaries in India. Such gifts fall into two categories. The first category will include gifts which are of nature, symbolic nature, like a sword of honor, ceremonial robes, etc., and which can be retained by the recipients. The second category of gifts would be those which are not of symbolic nature. If it is value less than 5,000 rupees, it can be retained by the ministers. If, however, there is any doubt about the estimate value of the gift, the matter should be referred to the Tosha Khana for valuation. If the value of the gift on assessment is found to be within the prescribed limit of the 5,000 rupees, the gift will be returned to the minister. If exceeds 5,000 rupees, the recipient will have the option to purchase it from the Tosakhana by paying the difference between the value as assessment by the Toshakhana and rupees 5,000 only. Only gifts of household goods which are retained by the Toshakhana, such as carpets, paintings, furnitures, etc., exceeding 5,000 rupees in value, will be kept in Rashtrapati Bhavan, Prime Minister's house, or Raj Bhavan as a state property. In case of grant of an award by any organization to the minister or a person holding the minister's status rank, the following procedures may be followed. First is the credential of the organization giving award may be gone into. Second is, if the credentials of the body giving the award are unimpeachable, the award as such may be accepted, but the cash part should not be accepted. if the awards related to the work done by the individual prior to his holding of the office of Prime Minister, such awards may be accepted, but in all such cases, specific approval of the Prime Minister of the or the Chief Minister, as the case may be, should be obtained. The Chief Minister and the other ministers shall have to take permission of the Prime Minister and the Union Home Minister. And D part is those instances where a minister is to receive any award by any organization which has connections with any foreign agencies or organizations such as ministers, a person such as a minister or a person holding the minister's status or rank will have to seek prior approval of the Prime Minister of India. A Prime Minister should follow the instruction given from time to time by the Prime Ministers in matters relating to the attending functions arranged by foreign missions in India or abroad, and also for accepting the membership of any foreign trust, institution or organization other than UN organizations of which India is a member. The authority for ensuring the observance of the code of conduct will be the Prime Minister in the case of Union Ministers, the Prime Minister and the Union Home Minister in the case of Chief Ministers, and the Chief Minister concerned in the case of State Ministers, except where it is otherwise specified. The, the said authority would follow such procedures as it might deem fit according to the facts and circumstances of each cases for dealing with or determining any alleged or suspect breach of this code. The said authority would follow such procedure as it might deem fit according to the facts and circumstances of each case for dealing with or determining any alleged or suspected breach of this code. The code of conduct is a starting point for ensuring good conduct by ministers. However, it is not comprehensive in its coverage and is more in the nature of a list of prohibition. It does not amount to a code of ethics. It is therefore necessary that in addition to code of conduct, there should be a code of ethics to provide guidance on how ministers should uphold the highest standards of constitutional and ethical conduct in the performance of their duties. The code should be based on the overreaching duty of ministers to comply with the law, to uphold the administration of justice, and to protect the integrity of the public life. It should also lay down the principles of ministers' civil servant relationship. The code of ethics should also reflect the seven principles of public life as enumerated. The Commission has examined the code of conduct in other countries and is of the view that a code of ethics and a code of conduct for ministers should include the following. First is ministers must uphold the highest ethical standards. Second, ministers must uphold the principle of collective responsibility. Third is ministers have a duty to parliament to account and be held to account for the policies, decisions and actions of their departments and agencies. Fourth is ministers must ensure that no conflicts arises or appears to arise between their public duties and their private interest. Fifth is ministers in the Lok Sabha must keep separate their roles as minister and constituency members. Sixth is ministers must not use government resources for party or a political purpose. They must accept responsibility for decision taken by them and not merely blame it on wrong advice. Seventh is ministers must uphold the political impartiality of the service civil service and not ask civil servants to act in any way which would conflict with the duties and responsibilities of civil servants. Eighth part, ninth part, ministers must comply with the requirement which the two House of Parliaments lay down from time to time. 10th is ministers must recognize that misuse of official position or information is violation of the trust reposed in them as public functionaries. 11th is ministers just ensure that public monies are used with utmost economy and care. 12th is ministers must function in such a manner as to serve as instruments of good governance, and to provide services for the betterment of the public at large and foster socio-economic development. And ministers must act objectively, impartially, honestly, equitably, diligently, and in a fair and just manner. The authority for ensuring the observance of the present code of conduct is the Prime Minister in the case of Union Ministers, the Prime Minister and the Union Home Minister in the case of the Chief Ministers, and the Chief Minister concerned in the case of the Minister of States and State Governments. The Commission is of the view that dedicated units should be set up in the office of the Prime Minister and the Chief Ministers of the state to monitor the observance of the Code of Conduct. The annual report indicating violations should be submitted to the appropriate legislature for consideration. Besides, the present Code of Conduct is not in the public domain, and as a result, members of the public are perhaps not aware that such a code exists. The Commission would like to recommend that the Code of Conduct of Ministers, duly amplified, should be put in the public domain as some other countries have done. As coalition politics has become the order of the day, it is particularly appropriate to ensure that the ministers from the coalition partners, both at the center and the state, also adhere to the code of ethics or conduct, and the Prime Minister and the Chief Ministers are duty bound to put violations of these codes in the public domain. Thank you very much.